Welcome to ETMA Tech Talk, the podcast that unveils forces shaping the future of tech. In each episode, we bring together visionary leaders, forward-thinking innovators, and game-changing experts who are transforming the enterprise tech landscape. Listen to insider perspectives, dive into bold stories of digital transformation, and strategic breakthroughs that turn challenges into competitive advantages. Whether you're looking to scale disruptive innovations, navigate the evolving tech landscape, or explore the latest in AI, FinOps, technology expertise management, IT services and consulting, cybersecurity, and other technology challenges, this podcast is your key to mastering the future of technology. Here is your host, ETMA's Managing Director, Joe Basili.
Welcome. Today we dive into the fast-moving world of purpose-built Android devices with two people who don't just talk about mobility innovation, they build it. Whether you're managing thousands of devices or trying to create innovative capabilities through devices, this episode gives you new, valuable insights as we learn how social mobile is reshaping the way organizations think about what devices can do. Our first speaker combines deep enterprise expertise, channel strategy, the ability to think outside the box, and delivery of leading-edge mobility solutions. Please join me in welcoming Social Mobile's Director of Enterprise Solutions, Janelle DeGregorio.
Hi, Joe.
Welcome. And our second speaker closes more deals with his ears. What? He says that being so slow to speak and quick to listen is critical and one of the most difficult challenges for any salesperson to overcome. He brings more than 2 decades of experience to his current role as Director of Channel Development for Social Mobile. Welcome, Travis Simpson.
Glad to be here, Joe.
Okay, so let's get into it. What are Social Mobile's focus areas?
So Social Mobile provides technology to enterprises that are looking to deploy devices for some specific use case. That could be in the cab of a truck for a truck driver. That could be for a device that's a companion device for healthcare that is helping to provide some information back to a doctor or enabling a patient to basically take care into their own hands. So essentially what we provide either custom devices or off-the-shelf enterprise devices that can be used for that use case. We can also lock them down with an EMM that we have in-house that's built specifically for Android. And we can put them with a one-stop shop to basically get everything they need for a device deployment within their specific enterprise.
And when you say enterprise-grade devices, I understand that's a term that Social Mobile uses. What's meant by that?
Enterprise grade are devices that don't have all the bells and whistles, right? So they're essentially made to be used in a specific setting. I always say that banker from JP Morgan is going to want an iPhone or a higher end Samsung device that they can use to send their emails. It looks good when they take it out in a meeting, or somebody wants an Apple device to make TikTok videos, but that's not really what our devices are for. So essentially what we did was we looked at the key components that our customers would need to be successful and roll out a lower cost option that still has a great processor, so has good memory, a good camera, but it can do what it needs to do. Most of our customers only need to roll out 1 or 2 applications and they want the device locked down. They don't want anybody going on Netflix or Instagram and trying to figure out how to basically do anything other than what the device is made to do. So that's where we've taken that approach for enterprise grade, because it is a lockdown device for the most part, only used for 1 or 2 specific use cases.
And what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions that channel partners and business partners that you work with have regarding Social Mobile?
I wouldn't say Social Mobile, but I think as a whole, the industry just tends to go towards Apple and Samsung. The names, they're flashy. The devices are flashy. They're the latest and greatest in terms of cameras and emojis and things like that. But I think when it comes to enterprises, I think enterprises are really catching on, maybe even before the channel has, in that enterprise grade is really what they need. the cost structure, even when you look at the cost between a Samsung and our device, you're talking a $200 tablet versus maybe a couple $100 more for a Samsung, even more than that for Apple. We're moving customers left and right off of Samsung and Apple, first of all, because of the cost of it, but second, because we have availability for 3 to 5 years, a global SKU that can be used anywhere. So we really try to make it easy for our customers to do a mass deployment and take all of the work that they had to do before out of it.
Yeah, and Joe, I would add that if you look historically, what's happened in the channel is that enterprise customers and really all throughout the channel, they're really just forced to deal and adapt to the existing technology rather than have somebody come in and ask a lot of different questions. Saying because when you send Samsung and Apple out there, most of the time there's other solutions that have to be added on there to manage these things so they don't get on TikTok and Instagram and all these things. And when you start getting to that, there's resource gaps, knowledge, skills gap, all these things. You have to have somebody to manage these extra tools where our ability to go in and like best understand what their environment is like, what's going on here, what are your problems, what are your challenges, what do they mean to you, is there a way to quantify these challenges, is it because of regulatory, is it a safety issue, is there something that we can do to help alleviate all this? And what Social Mobile is able to do is say, hey, I've said it before, if there's a way that we could push an easy button and you open this box and it fixes all these problems and you're able to move forward and have to have less tools to manage these things. So overall, we're able to provide a better solution and a better end user experience.
When you get into what our customers' big challenges are, just from being on the other end of it, a lot of it is that they have to go through and reevaluate devices every year, which is a huge pain point, especially when you're looking at the healthcare space. And if they have to register a device with the FDA and they have to spend all this time and energy only for Apple or Samsung to come out with a new device the next year. So us being able to provide them with a device for 3 to 5 years that they can utilize is huge. The other thing is obviously the international market. If you are looking at one SKU compared to a Samsung that has multiple different SKUs that you have to validate, all those engineering costs start to add up, and it starts to really take a toll on the business, to where we would talk to customers that would say that in some countries they weren't even deploying the devices because it was getting so hard to just maintain that product inventory.
Wow. So, other pain points that you see? You mentioned this whole idea of the cycle and every year having to evaluate new devices, and you talked a little bit about international. What are some other interesting pain points that you've uncovered?
Software updates, that's the big one. A lot of these companies, they don't have any regard for the use case of the device, right? They have a population of people that are buying the devices, most of whom are buying them for personal use. And they want the latest update as soon as it comes out. Like I said before, the emojis, right? Everybody wants the latest emojis on their iPhone. But when you're dealing with a healthcare company where this device is critical to some function, whether it's a glucose monitor or it's a heart monitor or something like that, you have to take that into consideration. So we actually work with our customers to provide them with the test updates, to work with them on an update schedule that fits into their calendar because of that.
And so, a lot of people, when we started this call and to start discussing this topic, we talked mostly, people think about smartphones, but let's go into some of the other devices that Social Mobile is involved with. I understand you do sensors, wearables, tablets.
Yeah, all of the above. We have a base platform that we utilize that can be spread across different form factors. So when you have customers that are looking at C6 handset, right? 6-inch handset, we also have a wearable that's built on the same platform that they can actually use that. If there's different companion apps and things like that that they have to run, they can do that. There's a couple of really exciting things that we're coming out with. We're coming out with a hotspot, 5G hotspot. We're coming out with a 5G dongle. This was something that we were looking into, especially in the healthcare space, to be able to plug into things like dialysis pumps and hospital beds to make them connected on a private network. So these are all different ways that we're taking the base technology and streamlining it in a way to come out with more products to help serve the enterprise need.
And it definitely highlights our ability to go into really complex environments and understand that there's really a lot of moving parts and not again, not forcing a hospital system to say, hey, here's your handheld. Let's try to make this work in so many different ways. Whereas, is there a better way to do this? And when you start looking at wearables, it does allow a larger range of motion to actually utilize the technology in ways that you can't get from just a tablet or a handheld.
Are there any examples that you can highlight where you've turned a device into basically a strategic advantage for an enterprise, or maybe just change the whole game for the enterprise where they're getting into capability that they didn't have before?
Yeah. So one of my customers, Securus Technologies, they essentially provide technology solutions to corrections facilities, a variety of different things that they do. They provide the portal where people can add money to commissary. They provide the applications that are used to make phone calls within the corrections facilities. And they came to us a couple of years ago wanting to build a state-of-the-art corrections grade tablet. And at the time, corrections grade wasn't something that was defined in the industry, and they actually defined it based on the work that they did with us. We are launching next month the first corrections grade tablet that is on Android Enterprise and is cellular enabled because of the innovations that we were able to do together. This device is completely impenetratable. That was very important to make sure that there wasn't any metal that could be easily accessed from the tablet. There are additional sensors in there. There's an electrical tape in it so that if the device is pried open, an alarm will ring. There is a Bluetooth sensor that is in there that the device can be found even if it is powered off. So there were a lot of things that they were looking at doing that at the beginning of the project seemed like it was crazy, right? There were so many different asks that they had that we were like, I don't know about this. But then once you dive in and you understand why they needed it, they were able to innovate the device in such a way that I don't know if their competition is going to be able to keep up with it. So that has positioned them very well in the market. And as a result, our partnership with them is just growing because of that.
And I will add, so I was bitter about this deal because at one point in time I was chasing this deal and Janelle won. And I never want to compete with Janelle when it comes to large deals. So if you can't beat them, join them. But I tell you, when I sat down and actually saw the solution, what it was, and when I say you win deals with your ears, the amount of listening and how granular that they were able to get to actually deliver, build this solution, and move it to deployment. It is easily one of the most impressive things I've ever seen because again, I came from a world where, hey, here's technology. Let's see how we can make this work for you, but it is what it is. Coming into social mobile, they built something that was so custom, so intricate, and how granular it was. It really blew my mind. I wanted to say that I didn't win that deal because of how great the solution was, but also it was Janelle behind the scenes finding all that information, gathering all that data, figuring out what's important to them. Because I look at it like being the good doctor. Janelle and I talked about this, figuring out what exactly they need before you prescribe a solution. And that's what they did. That's why they won the deal and I didn't.
It was a lot of listening, a lot of meetings. We had 25 people on site in our old office in Hollywood before we had the really nice conference rooms and everything, basically working through every last detail, not only from the hardware side, but from the software side. There was a lot of work that needed to be done to just build out the full solution. This device has been they've tried to jailbreak it, they've tried to get in the back end of it. There is nothing that they can do to get into this device, which is great. That is good news. But it's been through the ringer, and it just shows, I think, the collaborative approach that we take as well. We're always going to listen. We're always going to talk to our customers. And what seemed as though it might be impossible looking back 2 years ago now, where we are, it's crazy how far we've come with this project.
I'm curious on when you were going through that whole process, was there one thing like that sticks out the most? This is the most unique ask I've ever seen.
I think it was a combination of things. The drop test, the CTO, and he will not mind me saying this because he loves doing this. Shout out to Legit. He wanted to throw it against the wall and it not break. And that was we brought him prototypes. And I basically had to tell him, you cannot throw this. This is not the glass. This is not the molding, because I couldn't have him do it. But that was the biggest ask, because he wanted to be able to chuck it across and have it hit a cement wall and it not break. And I think we were able to deliver on that, which was great. But that was the crazy ask, I think, because when you throw a phone against a wall, it's going to break.
Yeah. Not that I've ever done that, but
And just to clarify for our listeners, at the time, Travis worked for another firm. So he was competing with Janelle's firm, but now they work for the same company. What other new trends are you seeing with regard to devices?
I was going to touch on the wearables because wearables is definitely the newest trend that we're seeing. And I think the reason why is because people are trying, again, to take technology. If you look at how a phone worked, and eventually they wanted to have a phone outside of the house. And they're looking for ways to expand and enhance the overall end user experience. And wearables is the newest solution that's able to do that. And it's more than just tracking health or things like that. There's a lot of other ways that people are going to find ways to use it. And that's really what I'm excited about is how if you look in enterprise space, there's somebody that's sitting behind a desk that's looking at their problems going, what if a wearable could do this? What would this change our environment? Would it impact our environment? So there's things that we can learn from our customers where they come to us and say, hey, is this something that's possible? And we don't like to say no.
Janelle, you were going to add some things before?
No, I think he hit it perfectly. The wearables, that's obviously the big buzzword in the industry right now. Everybody wants to understand how they can integrate wearables, even from going back to some of the different use cases we have around healthcare. How can they maybe take the phone, get rid of the phone that's controlling some sort of implant in the body or cardiac monitor, whatever, and basically pair it with a wearable. So these are even conversations that are happening today with some of our customers that are looking at how do they make things easier. Nobody really wants to carry around two phones. So do we put it on a wearable on the wrist, or can we do something else with a wearable? So I think there's a lot of different use cases that customers are getting even more creative with, trying to figure out how do they make the end user's world a little bit easier.
How about IoT or Internet of Things devices? Anything cool that you've been doing with them?
Yeah, I think we're always looking at IoT. I think the hotspot, the dongle that we're coming out with, those are two things that I think we saw a need in the industry for, especially around IoT. I consider all of our devices to be IoT, to be honest. I think they all have some sort of connectivity that's not necessarily cellular. But I think those are the big things that we do get asked. Somebody asked us for some sort of modem today that I have to look into, see if we can do something like that. We tend to get some crazy requests, but I think the lone worker mandate that was brought up a couple years ago really started to spearhead a lot of those. We've been asked to create panic buttons. That was a big thing. We were asked to create a wearable with a scanner on it for another customer. So there's always those different projects that pop up that are really cool IoT projects that we might not necessarily always delve too far into depending on what it is, but it's always interesting to see how customers are taking things that they need and innovating it and looking to find something that matches that.
Setting aside that tablet for the corrections facilities, what's the weirdest feature request that you've gotten? Glow in the dark or espresso machine?
We were asked to build a toy one time. This was a couple of years ago. It was a magnifying glass toy, like a smart magnifying glass. And I will entertain a conversation because I am a salesperson and I'm never going to say no until I have to. I entertained the conversation. It was very interesting. The timeline was way too short for us to do anything, but essentially it was a magnifying glass that you could put like tags on things. I don't know. I didn't understand the whole use case. That was the weirdest request I've ever gotten, though.
Travis, anything in your world?
I don't want to try to compete with that. No.
Okay, so talking about clients that have had weird asks, what about these market segments where you can't get them to talk and where they're missing out because they're really slow to implement solutions? What market segments do you think are really lagging behind where they could be doing a heck of a lot more?
You're going to get me in trouble here. I think I would love to, I'm going to put it this way. I would love to delve more into airlines and hospitality. I think those and retail. I think they have been cornered in this space where they think they have to use the $2,000 device and that's all they can use. And I think there is such a big market out there. I obviously go to Sephora quite a bit. They always have the handheld scanner to check people out. And I just sit there and I know how much those devices cost. And when I know we have one that costs a third of the price, it drives me nuts. But the adoption in those markets, it's a little bit different on how they do things. And I'm going through it right now with one of the airlines where you just realize they're so set in their ways and they don't like change. I think that we're getting there. We're getting there with this specific airline, but it's been something where I can't wrap my head around it, especially when you put the dollars next to each other.
So I would say that what I've observed over the last few years is manufacturing and textile has really had a hard time adapting. And one of the biggest reasons I've seen why is that I go in and I've sat with C-levels and I see these people who've built out these huge companies and they were and with all this machinery and all these things, and you could see how they were, the pinnacle of technology at one point in time. And what they did worked, but they're struggling to adapt to new technology. You walk in, you see the wood pane walls and the old camera systems and the old phone systems. So I've seen that a lot in the manufacturing facility, their inability to grasp and move towards new technology.
What do you think it is? Do you think it's fear of cost, or do you think that it's just lack of knowledge about what tech could be doing for them?
I think it's 100% lack of knowledge. And because again, you've got these business owners and leaders that they built something that was so big and they did what they knew, but they don't have a great understanding of why networking and security matters, why cell phones matter, why all these things matter. Meanwhile, their competitors oftentimes are starting to have a higher adoption rate, but they're seeing that they're not staying as competitive. And so being able to get in front of the right people and explain to them really the risk of not adapting and moving towards technology, how it's going to cost you much more in the long run.
And what kind of use case do you see for manufacturing? What if you could just wave a magic wand and say, this is what I would put into your facility? What do you think would be really good?
So when I look at safety and security, I think wearables and manufacturing, I think is a really good opportunity. Every manufacturing facility you go into, you always see the one big board that we are accident free, how many days? And there's some adoption rate where they do have networking that are set up in there, but if there's ways to put things on your network, you can track people where forklifts and operators are moving around. You can measure traffic. There are applications I think that would be very useful in manufacturing. Also, if you look at their machinery, they need to have diagnostics and things like that. It can be extremely expensive. And there are better solutions out there. And I wholeheartedly believe that we could go in there and make a solution that's much more cost effective, much easier to manage, reduce those. We talked about resource, knowledge, and skills gaps that we can do that, which is you find those in every organization.
That's great. And Janelle, you mentioned retail and you mentioned cycle in terms of difficulty getting into that sales cycle with new devices. Other things that you think are holding retail or some of the other categories that you mentioned back?
Lack of resources. I think internally they're spread very thin. They don't have a big tech department. Just from working with some of them in the past, I think that's a big thing. I think that when you look at the biggest issue that we have, let's say moving from a Zebra device or a Honeywell device to ours, is they've already been through all the testing, or they're on Android 10 because they haven't had to upgrade anything because they're on the legacy device. These are all the things. They don't have the resources to actually update the apps and do all of these things that they need to do to roll out a newer, cheaper device. And I think that's the big issues that I see, or the big challenges I see sometimes.
This is great. So what bets is Social Mobile making today that you think are going to pay off in the future?
I think we're really investing in the healthcare space and in transportation and logistics. I think bringing Travis on to help manage our distribution, that is somewhere where we haven't had the expertise in-house previously. I think it was a little bit interesting how it all happened. I basically connected somebody from our executive team with Travis to have them talk about how do we open up the distribution channels. And immediately it was very clear that we needed to bring Travis on board. So it was great how that all happened, and it was a little bit serendipitous how it worked out. But I think that is one area where we're looking at the next 12 months where we're looking to build that. But I think healthcare is huge for us. I think transportation, trucking, those are industries where we have a really good solution that we're putting out there into the market. And I think these specialized products, our Rhino portfolio, I love selling it. It is a great portfolio. But I think the fact that we can take those devices and customize them a little bit is one of our biggest selling features. Not a lot of companies are willing to do that. And it's interesting how excited customers get when they figure out that they can put their brand on the back or get a custom case or just modify little things that make the device more usable for them. So I think even taking those Rhino devices and customizing them a little bit, that's also a big selling point for us.
Travis,
Yeah,
when
and
you joined Social Mobile, what was the biggest shocker that you got?
I would say I touched on it earlier. Like you have an idea of what a custom device can do. But my thinking about a customized device was like my previous world was like this plus it can do this, it might be able to do that. I did not anticipate really in depth and how granular they could go into any environment and listen to them and actually put something together. When I walked through their technology room where they have everything on display and you could just see how vast the environments they were, what they did to them, Social Mobile's ability to articulate this was their existing problem. This is what they told us. This is what we did. This is what we delivered, and this is where they're at now. And by doing that, it definitely makes us much more sticky. But it's not just about being sticky. It gives us the ability to really understand who our people are. We all know that what we do is it's 90% relationships and being able to get in front of the right people and to listen properly, to let them know that, hey, we're just not here trying to sell you something. We're trying to change how you operate in some ways. And their ability to actually do that and deliver was by far the most impressive thing I've seen.
Janelle, give us something memorable about Social Mobile that you can say for on a podcast recording.
Put me on the spot here. I think the dynamics within Social Mobile are great. I think when you look at our executive team, when you look at the team that Rob, our CEO, has built, it is by far one of the best teams that I've ever come across working in this industry. And I've been through a lot of changes when I was at Calero with mergers and acquisitions and different people coming in and out. Around the time I joined was when Social Mobile was really going through a bit of a growth spurt. And our CFO, Ben, our president, Ed, our chief product officer, Jay, our VP of marketing, Christian, we all came in within 6 months of each other. And I think the transformation of the company that Rob built, and he did such a great job building, I think it just took it to the next level. And Rob has an ability to see something in people that he knows they would be a good fit. There's just something. I probably have had a few conversations with Rob before he asked me to join, and he just has this ability to put a group of people together who know how to work together. And I would say that is the biggest thing that I was surprised about, was just the knowledge that this team has and how he was able to wrangle all of us together and form this cohesive group.
Nice. What's a typical day look like for you?
They're never the same. They're never the same. Normally, there's a lot of customer meetings, a lot of internal planning, making sure that our customers are getting what they need. My favorite part of the day is working with our partners, working with our customers, and just working on solutions. I was actually, before this, I was on a call with a new partner we're onboarding that's in the technology space, and they're looking to partner with us for some health tech and defense opportunities. And it was just telling them about the portfolio and showing them everything that we've done. And they were so surprised at the breadth of what we could do. So those are my favorite things to do. There's a lot of other stuff that goes on. And obviously there's a lot of behind the scenes things, but I think my favorite days are when I'm working with our clients.
Cool. Travis, anything you want to add?
For me, being as new as I am, being tasked to onboard or get onboarded at TDS, which is done, completed, SKUs are loaded, we're ready to roll. There's a lot of operational stuff, which is not my strong suit. I'm much better at dealing with people and finding deals and driving deals and dealing with relationships. That's one of those things, we're going to build it and it's going to come. And so that's where I'm at now. And it's just getting everything put into place, and then we're ready to take off.
Cool. Let's go back in time a little bit and get personal. What activities from your childhood resemble what you do today? Like, Janelle, let's start with you.
So I look at myself And this is the Andrew Taylor-ism of it. And for those of you who don't know, Andrew Taylor was the president and CRO of Colero for a long time, and he helped mold me into who I am today. He basically told me, you are a solution seller. You're not selling commodities, you're selling solutions. So I view myself as a solution seller. And the closest thing, because I was not on a path to be in tech at all, I used to love, and I still love, to do Legos. I love to put the pieces together. And I still do them. I actually just ordered the Simpsons Lego set. It's the nerd in me. But anyways, I used to love to put together Legos and connects and just build stuff. And I think it's the same with what we do. When you're building a custom product, you're putting all those little pieces and parts together to create something that at the end is going to be useful. So I think that's where I fall on that.
So as a kid, you were a builder and into Legos and stuff like that.
Yeah, I wasn't a Barbie girl. I was into the Legos.
Okay. Travis, how about you? You're strong in sales, not so strong in operations, you said. So what was in your childhood resembles what you do today?
This is definitely a loaded question. So, growing up, I grew up in a very diverse environment. A lot of moving parts with that, and I would say that my ability to connect with people at a young age, and I don't know what to put this on a podcast, but I went to summer school a handful of years because I was not a great student. And my mother, she said, "Son, don't you get tired of summer school?" And I'm like, "Mom, I get to meet all the kids just like me." You know what I mean? And I just learned to have a love for people, but also understanding that everybody's different. Everybody has their own stories. You know, me, I grew up barefooted and I played banjo. Nobody ever thought I was going to be in technology, but I've been able to take these skills by being able to sit down with really anybody, find a way to connect with them, and be truly interested in what they have to say and what their story is. And so going into the channel, it was a much easier fit than what I thought it was going to be. Had to learn a few big words and acronyms. I'm getting there.
If you could go back in time, Travis, what would you tell your younger self?
Buy Bitcoin.
No, about your career or about yourself?
What I would say, and this is what I tell all my children, is you want to be able to be present where you're at and give everything you have where you're at. And when it comes to long-term plans, it's great to have them, but you need to be open. Like you never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to talk to. We were, at ETMA in Arizona, and I had no idea that in just a few short weeks, I was going to be moving from TD Synnex over to social mobile. So be open, but it's good to have a plan.
I like that. How about you, Janelle? What would you tell your younger self?
I would say, I think Joe, I was at Colero for 10 years and I was so afraid of change, so afraid to take a leap and move to a different company because I felt so comfortable where I was. I think that it's okay to take a chance. And I think not knowing anything about hardware before I came to social mobile, I was Googling stuff when I started here because I had no clue. I was like, RAM versus ROM, what is that? I don't know. These were the things I no clue. But I think I took a big leap coming here. And I think I had the foundation, but I can't say that if this would have happened 6 months earlier, I would have taken that leap. I think I was always very afraid of change. I was afraid to take chances, but I think this was something that I'm proud of myself for doing it. I'm happy that I came here. This is honestly the most fulfilling job that I've had. The stuff that we do to help people and how we impact people's lives with some of the programs that we've built with some of the healthcare companies. It's honestly, it's great to see. And I think that I'm just happy that I took a chance on it.
Yeah, Janelle, I think we met in Vegas, but I remember we were in New York City, and we have a great time anywhere we go, and we're good at making memories. If you would have looked down the road at the time we were having dinner and the whole big group of us, I would have never anticipated us actually working together. Not saying would never cross my mind, but you just never know. And I was taught that, was it the Mark Twain quote, says the biggest risk in life is not taking one. So
Yeah.
the change is good.
Like it. What kind of passions do you have outside of work or hobbies?
You want me to
Janelle,
go
let's
first?
start with you. Yeah.
I love to cook. I cook a lot. I love to read. I'm constantly reading. I'm a big history buff, which a lot of people don't realize, but I read about 2 books a week. I actually just bought the Ron Chernow book on Mark Twain. So this is how nerdy I am when it comes to that. But those are 2 big things. I think right now I'm into the home improvement space, not doing it myself, but monitoring people doing it, but that is now a new thing. I think you get a new kitchen floor and you're like, what else can I do? That is a big hobby of mine going into the end of the year.
Okay. And how about in the fall? I think you have a team that you support.
What was that?
In the fall?
Oh, the
You're
Buffalo
into-
Bills. Yeah, I'm a Bills fan. Bills Mafia. Oh yeah. We're gonna
Wouldn't
win.
want to leave that out of the podcast.
No, I am a huge Buffalo Bills fan. The other side of my office has a lot of Buffalo Bills gear. We are going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm calling it now. Josh Allen got one ring, got his wedding ring the other day. He's going to get a Super Bowl ring this year.
Nice. Travis, how about you? What hobbies are you and passions do you have outside of work?
For anybody that knows me, even a little bit at all, knows that music is a big deal for me. I went to school for music business, but I play guitar, banjo, piano, mandolin. If it's got strings, I can typically play. But now my children play and we play together. And I've been in bands and I really enjoy that. But oftentimes, my favorite place to play is usually just around a campfire and some people that might be terrible at singing, but it's all right. We'll do our best. But yes, so music, and my other passion is napping. I'm pretty good at it. No, napping.
Oh, napping.
Yeah.
Joe
I
got all
like it. I like it.
Matt,
Who of yours?
it's not much cooler, but yeah.
Okay, that's cool. What do you like going forward? What skills or knowledge do you think are really going to be critical in the next year to 5 years? And what are you doing to get up on those skills and knowledge? Janelle?
I think obviously AI, the buzzword that's out there right now. So I think I was able to go to the Google Next show last month in Las Vegas that really highlighted how Google is using AI and transforming some of the products that are out there. We're trying to work with a couple companies right now that do some AI consulting to understand how we fit into that, because you always need a device, right? When it comes to something with AI. So we're working on that right now. And I think for me, it's just trying to figure out that landscape, and not only how do we fit in, but what are the privacy implications? How does it affect our customers? Who's going to be adopting it? Who's not? Healthcare, obviously, it would be very beneficial for them to adopt some sort of AI, but for HIPAA, how does that all come together? So I think what I've been doing is just trying to figure out and read up on how this is all going to work together in the end.
And what do you like when you say read up? Is it mostly through the internet or what sort
Yeah,
of
there's a lot of
resources?
periodicals out there that, and a lot of research papers. I try to stay away from the clickbait articles, but there is a lot out there. And a lot of the healthcare companies are actually publishing studies and research on how they could use AI. So that's the sort of stuff that I try to keep up with. You look at the Medtronics, the Abbotts, those larger Johnson and Johnson, larger healthcare companies are really starting to take note, because especially when you're looking at patients that are using a cardiac monitor, AI could help detect those patterns quicker than somebody looking at the actual readout. But does that violate HIPAA? Or where does that information get stored? Or who has access to it? Or so these are all the things that I'm starting to look into, because as we're building out the next generation of devices and as we're getting asked what AI features, and obviously our relationship with Google is so strong, I could see us working on something there, just understanding how that will all play into the future over the next 12 months.
Travis, same question. What do you think are going to be the key skills and knowledge for the next year to 5 years? And what are you doing to get up on those skills and knowledge?
So to piggyback on where she was at, if we look historically, anytime new tech is introduced, it's always viewed as like witchcraft. Who's going to be the first to use it? Who's going to be the first to adopt it? What is that going to look like? And with AI, there just seems there's so much information about it. It's what's right, what's wrong. Is there going to be an AI regulatory similar to HIPAA and OSHA? Is there going to be something in the tech world that's going to help manage this? And really trying to see who's going to adopt it, what's it going to do? Because sometimes I look at AI adoption, it's like everybody standing on the side of the pool and who's going to jump in first. And as some people start to jump in, everybody's in the pool next thing you know. And so I'm curious to see how a lot of this is going to play out. To Janelle's point, looking at healthcare, I mean, there's some great solutions, some easy low hanging fruit where we see that this is a great solution. But then again, we have other bodies and regulatory things and that are already in place that how do we manage that? What's what here, there, and what's going to be a violation? So I'm really curious to see what that's going to look like over the coming years. But it's escalating at such a speed. It's like what you knew 3 months ago is no longer what we thought it was. And as far as ingesting data and trying to understand, I've read articles on it and everybody's got opinions. And for me, I'm more interested in to say, hey, here's the company that adopted this. This was their current environment. This is what it's doing for them now. We can see easy things like Copilot and things like that. Yeah, that's easy. But as far as going into really complex environments, I think that's where we're all still standing on the side of the pool to see who's going to come out with what here. I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but that's where I'm at when it comes to AI.
That's what we wanted to know, where you're at in terms of skills and knowledge that are important for success. Where can the audience find out more about social mobile and more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so if you go to socialmobile.com, very easy website, or any of the socials, so LinkedIn, just search social mobile. You can actually get more information on all of our products, some of our case studies, and there is actually a form that you can fill out, a contact us form, if you wanted to get in touch with us. But obviously, Travis and I are both on LinkedIn. If you want to just shoot a question over, we're always open to talking to people and jumping on the phone and talk about our solutions.
Great. This was fantastic. I think we learned a lot about social mobile and a lot about what's going on with regard to mobility and mobile devices in the enterprises. This brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
ETMA Tech Talk podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes research, collective wisdom, and action. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions from the market's top problem solvers, making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.